Boko Haram, the most terrifying terror group in Nigeria, played key role in destabilizing the socio-cultural and economic well-being of the Nigerian people, particularly in the northeastern part of the country.
When we want to go to Damboa, we used to follow Gombe, Numan, Uba, Chibok before we reach Damboa. Sometimes we used to spend 3 days. Sometimes it takes us 2 days.
We used to travel for more than 700 kilometers before reaching Damboa. These lorries will find it very difficult to travel for more than 700 kilometers to take their goods to Damboa.
Not only the northeastern part of Nigeria, but also the neighboring West African states of Chad, Cameroon and Niger Republic have suffered serious consequences of this terror group. The fight between the government forces and the insurgents heightened tensions in a country that was seriously heading to a state of conflict, anarchy, war and catastrophe, as the threat by the terror group to invade the entire region of the country was becoming so pronounced and increasingly growing to a geometrical progression. The internationally funded and well-trained terror group was mercilessly attacking, vandalizing assets and property, killing and maiming hundreds of innocent citizens, including women and children, a situation that gave the insurgents the opportunity to massively recruit child soldiers across the region and beyond, empowering the group with energetic fighters, full of fresh blood, with a mindset of kill and go. As part of its mandate in taking over the entire northeastern Nigeria and beyond, the Boko Haram fighters dominated and took over 20 out of the 23 local government areas of Borno State, an ancient that was never conquered in the past, even during the jihad of Sheikh Usman B0K0 between 17th and 19th centuries. It all started as a simple religious organization with initial proclaimed intention of uprooting corruption and injustice in Nigeria, which it blamed on Western influences. The group was also to impose and implement Sharia, an Islamic legal system that allows for capital punishment, but was a sharp radicalism from the usual Sharia law known to the Muslim Ummah, earlier imposed by a northern Nigerian governor, Ahmed Sani Yarima, of Zamfara state in the year 2000. However, the group turned to be the most volatile and dangerous organization of all times, when fight between the organization's insurgents and the Nigerian security operatives led to the horrifying genocide that ever happened in the history of that part of Nigeria, where hundreds of thousands of Nigerian people, including the aged, women and children, were massacred across the region and the neighboring Chad, Cameroon and Niger Republic.
Ba za mu saurari kowa ba, mun riga mun yi, ba wanda za mu rubuta takarda, ba wanda za mu saurari maganansa, ba wanda za mu tattauna da shi, kuma ba mu yadda da wannan duka ba. Ba mu yadda da shi ba, ba za mu yafe ba, ko ba za mu tattauna da kowa ba. Kuma waɗannan mahaukatan sojojin in ba ɗauke su a cikin gari ba, ba za a zauna lafiya ba.
The type of indoctrination they received is such that you can neither talk to them, now convince them that what they are doing is wrong. They have been indoctrinated to believe that what they are doing is the right thing. They have been indoctrinated to believe that when they kill, they go to paradise, and when they are killed, they go to paradise. So in view of their mindset, and in view of the encouragement they are receiving from whoever God knows, they feel that they are on the top of the world when they die, and they are on the top of the world when they kill.
The Boko Haram insurgents continue to grow from strength to strength, spreading their tentacles, capturing more towns and villages, expanding their territory until when the activities of the organization were brought down by the Nigerian army. At last, Mohammed Yusuf and other fighting commanders of the Boko Haram insurgents were captured and killed, a situation which triggered more anger amongst the followers of the radical religious sect. The extrajudicial killing by the police angered members of the group, as well as other members of the public, particularly relations and well-wishers of Yusuf and his co-travelers, to rise up against the Nigerian state, leading to the mass enlistment of more insurgents into the group, widening the group's intelligence and scope. A year after the display of Muhammad Yusuf and other leaders of the group's corpses, a video showing Yusuf's deputy Abubakar Shekau was made public, declaring himself as the group's new leader, vowing to avenge the death of Muhammad Yusuf and other commanders of the sect who were killed in the process. The insurgents then regrouped with full force, well-trained fighters with latest weaponry, intelligence and large amount of money that enabled them face Nigerian government squarely with the intent of taking over at least that part of Nigeria. Since then, the deadly organization had carried out assassinations and large-scale acts of violence in the northeastern Nigeria and the neighboring Chad, Cameroon and Niger Republic. The violent attacks on government forces, police and other security agencies, the civilian population, including gruesome murders of hundreds of innocent lives in that part of Nigeria, attracted and elicited widespread condemnation from human rights groups, civil society organizations, and the international community. In July 2009, Boko Haram gained widespread exposure. The group launched a series of attacks on police posts and other government installations, including scores of police officers. The waves of Boko Haram's attacks increased in frequency and magnitude, killing and injuring many, including women and children, leading to mass exodus of people to other parts of the country and beyond, destabilizing the socio-cultural and economic well-being of the entire region, creating and causing serious humanitarian crises. Huge camps of the internally displaced persons littered every part of that region and the neighboring West African states. The attacks, which occurred mostly in Nigeria's northeast, north central and central states, were typically focused on police, military and government targets, as well as Christian churches, Muslim mosques, schools, and Muslim individuals who were perceived by the insurgents to be critical of the group. The sinister nature of the Boko Haram, as well as its resilience, made it difficult to craft an effective strategy to end the group's campaign of terror in the most powerful African nation. In the year 2013, it was apparent that the Boko Haram had taken over many rural local government areas in the northeastern Nigerian states, where they were able to gain strength practicing their style of governance, imposing the radical Sharia law, where capital punishments such as caning, amputation, stoning, execution, and other forms of capital punishments were commenced and administered by the insurgents.
Yandiana adinne andia seya adinne kilvina mado daji sero umurnye dero sero gumguye au sero takriye au shmadan delamguye goyo konyo ngairo. Allahu akbar. Allah
Attacks and bombings of motor parks, police stations, mosques and churches, market gatherings, communities, and a host of other public places were at their peaks. Thousands of lives and properties worth billions of naira were destroyed in the process. Foreigners undertaking businesses and other economic activities in the region abandoned their businesses to save their lives, creating massive unemployment in the states was hit by the activities of Boko Haram. In April 2013, Shekau dismissed a proposal from Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan to grant amnesty to Boko Haram militants if they disarmed. But Shekau outrightly rejected the offer, saying Boko Haram members had done nothing to be given amnesty by the Nigerian government. Just a month after, the Boko Haram insurgents launched a series of coordinated military-style attacks in the town of Bama in Borno State. The attacks left more than 50 people dead and destroyed numerous police, military and government buildings. The group also released more than 100 inmates from a prison in the town. In response, the Nigerian government launched its largest-scale military offensives against the Boko Haram during the Jonathan's regime, deploying thousands of troops on ground, and carried out a campaign of airstrikes to combat the group. In spite of the military's actions, the Boko Haram insurgents continued their horrific attacks, including many on schools, resulting in more than 1,200 deaths by the end of the year 2013. The group also killed hundreds of people by detonating bombs in large towns and cities, including Abuja, Nigeria's capital, which demonstrated the capacity of the insurgents in intelligence, strength, equipment and finances, over and above that of the Nigerian government. The insurgents also continued to target schools, such as in the February attack on a college in Yobe State, where some 50 male students were killed and the college was virtually destroyed. The group drew worldwide condemnation after it perpetrated a mass kidnapping of more than 275 girls from a boarding school in Chibok, in Borno State in April 2014. Which generated an increase in offers of international assistance to Nigerian government as the country attempted to quell Boko Haram's acts of terror. In May that year, the United Nations Security Council imposed sanctions on individuals in Boko Haram, freezing assets and issuing travel bans and an arms embargo. However, given the group's informal structure, the sanctions had no apparent effect on the Boko Haram's operations. The group continued its attacks and expanded the territory it occupied. In August 2014, the Boko Haram declared the area under its control to be an Islamic state, appointed their imams and judges in the communities they occupied. That part of Nigeria was almost conquered by the jihadists. Their leaders started hoisting their flags in the territories they captured and took over, establishing their administrative structures and appointing officers and leaders to run the affairs of those communities. Education and the economic activities of the people in those communities taken over by the insurgents destabilized. Their socio-cultural heritage was upset. Psychosocial well-being crumbled. Hundreds of security agents comprising police, civil defense, and military officers were massacred by the jihadist fighters in the region. The situation became worse that even the central government of Nigeria was confused of what to do to save the situation there. On the heels of the military offensive, President Jonathan had to, in June 2013, officially declared Boko Haram as a terrorist group and banned it under the Nigerian law, empowering the government to prosecute the group members and anyone caught aiding them under the country's Terrorism Prevention Act. But in spite of the act, the Boko Haram's attacks persisted into 2014, particularly in the northeast, as the group continued to raid villages, terrorizing and killing scores of civilians with increasing frequency. However, with the coming of President Muhammadu Buhari as Nigeria's president in 2015, and with the appointment of Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai as the Nigeria's 29th Chief of Army Staff, things began to take different dimensions and the situation miraculously changed.
When General Tukur Yusuf Buratai was appointed in 2015 as the Chief of Army Staff of the Nigerian Army, the country or the nation knew the kind of army he met, their disposition to the war, also their equipment disposition, and the general morale of troops generally was low. And then fighting war with troops whose morale was low, at the same time equipment disposition was weak, is a no-mean task, it's a Herculean task.
To urgently, effectively, and successfully win a war against terrorists or insurgents in any country, there must be some underlying conditions for the military to actualize the dream. These conditions include, but not limited to, the following. 1. Having a robust, professionally trained army in the most modern warfare. 2. Providing adequate and sophisticated modern warfare and tactical communication strategy technologies. 3. Availability of sufficient funds and necessary logistics for the army. 4. Commensurate remunerations for the gallant soldiers at the forefront. 5. Psychological satisfaction for the gallant soldiers and their families. 6. Regular and constant reinforcement and retraining. 7. Provision of sufficient and adequate intelligence to the soldiers. 8. Proper coordination and harmonious working relations between and amongst the security agencies in the country. 9. Support and cooperation between the security agencies and the community. 10. Support and cooperation between security agencies and the politicians in the country. 11. Support and cooperation from the local and international communities and organizations. However, in Nigeria, none of the above conditions was 100% provided to the Nigerian soldiers fighting the dreaded Boko Haram insurgents in the northeastern Nigeria before the coming of Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai as Nigeria's Chief of Army Staff in 2015. As a result, General Tukur Yusuf Buratai inherited a dilapidated army structure with inadequate contemporary professional training, poor funding and equipment, as well as demoralized soldiers fighting internationally prepared and well-funded terror groups. General Buratai also inherited troops without the requisite supports from neither the international community nor institutions, as the insurgents are getting their funding, intelligence, training and weaponry from some mischievous international funding agencies. In demonstrating his commitment and determination to serve his country in the most passionate and diligent way, Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai delved into the necessary and basic search for solutions to the already worst war with an established, fully supported and funded terror groups that took its time to prepare. With the competence, wisdom and wealth of experience of Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai and the support received from President Muhammadu Buhari, the Nigerian Army was adequately prepared to face the insurgents. Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai employed his wealth of experience and knowledge of the military by first identifying the necessary requirements to confront the Boko Haram insurgents.
The first thing that General Buratai did was to introduce training in asymmetric warfare, to consolidate on training. He was so emphatic, so serious about training. So local training, foreign training on contemporary security threat facing our country were introduced, especially on issues of terrorism and other contemporary security challenges, laying the foundation for the successes we are getting now. General Buratai also sensitized our political leaders on the need to procure more equipment, and thankfully was our President Commander-in-Chief, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Many platforms, many military hardwares, equipments were purchased for the Nigerian Army and for the armed forces of Nigeria.
As a strategic professional soldier, Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai assured President Muhammadu Buhari, who is also a veteran war fighter with exceptional wealth of experience, that the war against insurgency in Nigeria will be gallantly fought and won. Unlike other military chiefs, General Tukur Yusuf Buratai began his duty by complying with the marching order of President Muhammadu Buhari, that all military commands and control centers be relocated from Abuja to the northeast, the epicenter of the insurgency.
We assure you, just like Mr. President has always done, so we have no cause to give room to anybody to distract us. We are assuring you of your welfare both in the field as well as in the barrack. These have manifested in different ways, and I believe many of you, your families, have benefited from it. We must remain focused, we must remain firm, we must maintain the courage and determination to bring this madness by these criminal elements of Boko Haram or whatever they call themselves to an end very soon. As I mentioned, just before the end of the year, when I went around Boga and other formations and units, we're expecting much improved welfare, improved allowances. The President has already approved on that. We must work hard. We must be determined at all times and be retraining. Training is very, very important. So on this note, I want to once again say congratulations for the feat you have done yesterday, and you must continue to do that same feat to clear their doubts and deal with them decisively.
The Borno State-born war strategist thereafter examined, analyzed and explored better ways and means of tackling the situation in the northeastern Nigeria and other parts of the country. After a careful study of the situation on ground, Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai developed and proposed for the President some of the tactical plans for tackling the insurgency. With President Muhammadu Buhari, a veteran army general, being the commander-in-chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces of the Federal Republic, General Buratai's professional advice on how to conquer the war was accepted and endorsed by the President. The presidential order of President Muhammadu Buhari to centralize operations nearer to the heart of the insurgency was religiously and professionally complied with by General Tukur Yusuf Buratai, and has greatly helped the efforts of the Chief of Army Staff by easing the bureaucratic bottlenecks and speeding up decision-making processes on the field combats. One of the basic steps taken by the Chief of Army Staff towards conquering the war was the welfare of soldiers and their families, especially those at the war front.
General Buratai ensured prompt payment of salary and allowances for troops in the mission area and for all members of the Nigerian Army. Our salaries and other mandatory allowances are being paid as at when due. And that singular act really gingered, really moved, really encouraged the troops to give in their best in the field.
Since the the time of able Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Buratai, we have witnessed an increment in our manpower commissioning. For instance, since I joined the Army, I never met that consultants were commissioned into the Army. But since he came on board, he restarted the system of gradually bringing in consultants, gynecologists, orthopedic surgeons, different fields into the Nigerian Army. So with that, we are able to meet with our acute shortage of manpower deficiency. Beyond that, the infrastructure development is probably phenomenal, something we have never seen before, in the sense that our flagship hospital and the 44 Nigerian Army Reference Hospital was massively renovated. That also went to the hospital in Lagos, which we call the 68 Nigerian Army Reference Hospital, also massively renovated. Beyond that, the hospital in Lagos, which we call the Military Hospital Lagos in Ikoyi, has also been renovated, and they're almost done with that. That's aside from the other smaller hospitals that are being renovated. I can remember a number of patients have been evacuated to different countries, to India, some to Germany, some to even the UK for specialized care. Some have gotten prostheses for the injuries to their limbs, eye prostheses, and of late, we have started giving hearing aids to patients, soldiers who have had injuries and they're having issues with hearing. So the hearing aids was graciously procured by the Nigerian Army for this kind of patients.
I am right now in Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State, the heart of the Boko Haram crisis. I am right inside 7th Division of the Nigerian Army. One of the welfare packages provided by the Chief of Army Staff to boost the morale of the soldiers is an initiative which is called Chief of Army Staff Investment Initiative, where livestock are provided for the families of the soldiers to prevent them from going to the outside market for the purchase of these animals. I am right in front of some livestock in one of the ranches provided by the Chief of Army Staff under the program Chief of Army Staff Investment Initiative Program. The livestock are provided for the welfare of the soldiers as explained by the RSM in charge of the ranch. May I know your name?
My name is MW Mustafa Abdullahi, RSM 7 Divisions, Nigeria Army.
What are these animals meant for?
The Chief of Army Staff doing of his own welfare of the soldier. He's seen that a soldier has been to the markets and go and buy the cows or rams. That is why he think that all this one is risk for him. That is why he's take. Let all we have to have that initiative to go and bought it, come and keep it here. Any soldier where he need to come and bought it here, you go and do anything what he wanted to do with it.
Another giant step taken by the Chief of Army Staff was the provision of weaponry to match those being used by the insurgents, intercepting their intelligence, updating the knowledge of the troops, and the boosting of their morale. The soldiers were fully prepared by the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai, to face the war. Confidence and courage of the Nigerian soldiers, including other security outfits, were summoned, and the real war began. The Chief of Army Staff focused on the clearing of the hisatophobia among some senior military officers under the previous administration, where soldiers were afraid to be at the battlefield with the Boko Haram insurgents, by leading troops to dismantle the dreaded Sambisa forest, the safe haven of the Boko Haram's top commanders.
This insurgency is a global responsibility. It's a national challenge. It's not only meant for the military to tackle it. The army is committed to defend our country and will continue to emphasize.
In no much delay, Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai swiftly changed the face of the counter-insurgency operations, as well as the supervision and monitoring of the anti-insurgency operations. The Chief of Army Staff started commanding the battle from the front line in person, very fruitfully and successfully. The crack infantry combatant never hesitated nor became afraid of the trenches or waterfront any day, anywhere, anytime. The Chief of Army Staff was at one time being ambushed and attacked by the Boko Haram terrorists, but yet he was never scared nor dissuaded. General Buratai studied the intricacies of the insurgency and discovered a huge concentration of the terrorists in the Sambisa forest. Sambisa, which was a forest where insurgents hide and persistently emerge to bloodily strike the heart of Borno State and other parts of northern Nigerian states, as well served as the group's center for training of their recruits, was as well a venue for plotting their heinous atrocities and recuperation from ground after strikes of violence on communities and villages. He vowed they must not be allowed to possess the forest, and then planned several months to capture it. And when General Buratai and other commanders led troops to strike in December 2016, Shekau, his top commanders and foot soldiers sheltered in the enclave were massively dislodged. Some of the insurgents met their Waterloo in the encounter with the troops, while a few other terrorists escaped, including the factional terror leader. But from the historic capture of the Sambisa forest on December 22, 2016, General Buratai brought back to Abuja relics of demystification, penetration of Camp Zero, subjugation of Shekau's empire. The Shekau's personal effect obtained by the army were a copy of the Holy Quran and Boko Haram jihadi flag, among others, which were presented to President Muhammadu Buhari.
Let me state that we will not rest on our oars, but will redouble efforts to sustain the current tempo in mopping up and clearing remnants of the insurgents who are already in disarray and trying to filter into the society. We are quite confident that with the relentless support of the Commander-in-Chief, the security challenges in parts of the country will soon be surmounted.
The battle to free Sambisa forest and the entrapped communities in the area had just begun, as the Boko Haram insurgents were pained to lose their fortified fortresses of shelter. In his determination to take over Sambisa forest and free the trapped communities around, General Buratai was throughout 2017 made the Northeast his permanent home and intensified clearance operations in enclaves within Sambisa forest to flush out remnants of the insurgents. This is in addition to other fronts in other parts of the country.
I am delighted to be in your midst this morning on this auspicious occasion of the official flag off of Sahel Sanity. The exercise is the Nigerian Army's response to the escalating security challenges bedeviling some parts of the Northwest and, of course, the North Central geopolitical zones.
The banditry, kidnapping and cattle rustling in the Northeast, the Fulani herdsmen in the North Central, and other criminal elements in the South and Western Nigeria. In spite of all that, General Buratai eventually pulled down the final walls of the forest, cleared all the areas repossessed by the insurgents, confiscated their weapons, again dislodged Abubakar Shekau from Camp Zero, and recaptured it by the end of the year 2017. The second military raids on the Sambisa forest were more deadly on the terrorists, so much that Shekau, in a video later released, confessed to suffering heavy casualties and expressed frustration with the war, preparing to die than to live. At the start of January 2018, General Buratai sojourned back to Sambisa forest on an operational thank you visit to troops and to convey President Muhammad Buhari's appreciation to the soldiers stationed in different locations of the forest, who performed wonderfully and miraculously, giving reliefs to various communities to conduct their normal businesses without the fear of the Boko Haram insurgents. The helicopter conveying the Chief of Army Staff from Maiduguri first landed in Vitta village, a small settlement in Sambisa. It was right inside the darkest belly of the Camp Zero that the General Tukur Yusuf Buratai issued order to troops on the capture of the escapee factional leader of Boko Haram, Abubakar Shekau. Gradually, the Boko Haram elements were pushed out of the territory, killing scores and forcing thousands others to surrender to the Nigerian army. The conquered local government areas retrieved and the socio-cultural and economic activities of these communities restored to normal.
These people you're seeing here are Boko Haram members that have surrendered to a task force division Nigerian army. As you can see, we are treating them well. Nobody is maltreating them.
General Tukur Yusuf Buratai also rescued thousands of kidnapped and captured citizens and soldiers from the hands of the insurgents. Gradual peace and harmony are now being restored by the Nigerian army in the northeastern states of Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, and Taraba.
I am right in front of Gambaru Market in Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State. Before today, this market was a closed one due to the activities of the insurgents. But today, the market is reopened and the people are undergoing or undertaking their activities as usual.
This is no doubt that General Buratai fulfilled his promise of defeating and conquering the Boko Haram insurgents in the northeastern Nigeria.
Let me seize this opportunity to express my profound appreciation to the Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces, President Muhammad Buhari, the Chief of Army Staff, the Chief of Naval Staff, Air Staff, Defense Staff, and other service chiefs, and in particular, the theater commander, officers, and men of the Nigerian military for maintaining law and order, protecting lives and properties of the good people of Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe, and in particular, the good people of Goza local government.
But in the history of anywhere in the world, military and security agencies are faced with guerrilla war by enemies, particularly at the tail end of the war. According to war and crime experts, guerrilla war is a sign of conquering and weakening the powers of the enemies, as well a verge of collapse of the enemy's regime and kingdom, as they are being defeated by the country's army.
The guerrilla force is necessary because the non-state actors that are, or even if it's a conventional army that is fighting the guerrilla warfare, realizes it doesn't have the numbers, or it cannot do a confrontational war, against the conventional army. So they use this small mobile surprise attacks, mainly to sustain the warfare and then to gain whatever advantages they want to gain and win the effect at the end of the day.
In their latest and final attempt, the remnant of the Boko Haram fighters whose courage, powers and intelligence were already disrupted, destabilized, demoralized and degraded by the Nigerian army, have chosen to fight the Nigerian army using guerrilla warfare, a move the Nigerian army is now tackling. At the stage of the guerrilla war, enemies use psychology to demonstrate their ability and capacity to remain lions in the eyes of the public. But notwithstanding, a responsible military of a nation committed to the ending of the war with terrorists reacts swiftly and urgently to the activities of the guerrilla fighters. In so doing, Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai now relocated to the northeastern Nigeria to see to the end of the guerrilla fighters. This is coming just a few months of his relocation to the northwestern Nigeria, where he dealt decisively with the armed bandit terrorizing farmers, cattle breeders, as well as businessmen and women. In his efforts to conclusively bring to an end the atrocities of the dreaded Boko Haram in the northeast, the Nigeria's Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai, is now committed to dealing ruthlessly with the guerrilla fighters in the northeastern Nigeria. Some of the tactics evolved by the Chief of Army Staff, including but not limited to unscheduled visit to commands, units, battalions and task forces of the Nigerian Army to advise, strategize, unite, encourage and reinforce cordial working relations between and amongst the units and commands in their efforts to deal with the remnants of the Boko Haram insurgents, to completely free the region of the menace. For security reasons, the sound of the Chief of Army Staff's command, directives and advice are muted, but one can glaringly see that the visit was in the middle of the night. This shows that the Army, and indeed the Chief of Army Staff, are fully committed and determined to deal ruthlessly with the guerrilla fighters to completely bring to an end the war against the dreaded Boko Haram insurgency in the northeastern Nigeria. Standard Voice carried out an opinion survey amongst the people in the region, particularly Borno State, the epicenter of the Boko Haram. And here are their views of the war and the current situation there.
Sunana Umar Mohamed Aji. A wannan kasuwan ina sayar da biski ne. Alhamdulillah mun samu zaman lafiya amma bana mun sha wahala akan sadan kaya. Muna da tsoro dai iya tsoro ko ba haka bane hanya dai lafiya kalau amma dai kayan a wani waje yana da sauki in ya zo ya shiga Maiduguri yana da tsada.
Sunana Baba Gana Luntima ne, ni ne sakataren kasuwan, chairman so ba da lafiya ne. Amma ni ne president kasuwan yanzu. Coastal Market Trade Association muna cikin farin ciki game da tsoro mai kyau. Matakin tsoron da za a dauka mana sai dai gwamnati ta dau mana wasu mataki wanda a dinga kula da dukiyoyin jama'a. Inda ya kamata daga nan zuwa Kala Balge zuwa Dikwa Manguno Gajiran Marce zuwa Damasak Malam Fatari wannan wajen shine inda Borno kuma cibiyanta kuma inda ana samun walwalan jama'a nan ne duk cibiyar Borno take ko sitsi ba bara a cikin NGO da sauransu ba nan idan an ci an samu zaman lafiya wani kasa ta inganta da komai da komai.
Muhammad Bale Ali leburanci alhamdulillah harkokin mu na leburanci mun gode wa Allah ana kawo kaya muna saukewa alhamdulillah gogodon karfi dai muna dan samu mun gode wa Allah komai yana tafiya kamar inda aka saba muna da matsala daya kaga yanzu kayan nan a jihar Katsina ake kawowa sanin tsoro alhamdulillah gogodon karfi muna samu.
To ko ka gamsu da yadda sojoji suke gudanar da aikin su a jihar Borno?
Tsakani da Allah na gamsu da shi. Na gamsu da aikin su.
I'm glad to inform Nigerians that there is gradual return of peace to the northeast sub-region and in particular Borno State. We have received tremendous support from the Nigerian military, from the paramilitary, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and its agencies, especially NEMA, Northeast Development Commission, among others. Government has started the resettlement of people to their ancestral homes. The most important thing is that how can we engage them on return?
As a landmark sign of achieving success in the fight against the dreaded Boko Haram in the northeastern Nigeria, the people of Borno State queued up at various polling units on the 28th November 2020 to elect their local council leaders in all the 23 local government areas of the state, an event that was suspended for 11 years due to insecurity.
Alhamdulillah mun zabi ra'ayinmu. Alhamdulillah sauran magayana suna kanyi.
Turnout is very impressive. And then the election is ongoing peacefully, and people are conducting themselves in a peaceful manner.
In view of the significant changes, efforts and giant strides by the Nigerian military and the Chief of Army Staff, Nigerians and indeed the good people of the affected regions where terrorists have traumatized innocent citizens should commend the efforts of the soldiers and the Chief of Army Staff, especially bearing in mind the supreme price the gallant soldiers have been paying in defense of our territorial integrity and the protection of lives and property of our people. Now that the security, peace and tranquility are gradually being restored in the northeastern Nigeria, particularly Borno State, where the Nigerian army has played significant role, people are now faced with many other challenges requiring government attention. One of the most challenging problems of Borno State, the most heated state in northeastern Nigeria in terms of Boko Haram atrocities, is humanitarian crisis.
Shout!